The alphabet feels so ordinary that it is easy to miss how strange and powerful it really is. A small set of symbols, repeated in different combinations, can capture laws, poems, shopping lists, scientific theories, names, contracts, and private messages. That is not just writing. It is compression. Instead of needing a separate picture or sign for every possible idea, an alphabet reduces speech into reusable pieces. Once those pieces are learned, they can be rearranged endlessly. This is why alphabets became one of the most influential technologies in human history. They made spoken language visible, portable, and durable. At the heart of an alphabet is a simple principle: letters represent sounds. More precisely, they usually represent phonemes, the smallest sound units that can separate one word from another in a language. For example, if changing one sound changes the meaning of a word, that sound matters to the writing system. Alphabets do not perfectly capture every accent, tone, or pronunciation detail, but they aim to map symbols onto the sound structure of speech. This is very different from a system that begins with meaning. The alphabet asks, "What does the word sound like?" Then it builds the written form from there. Not all writing systems work this way. In a syllabary, each sign represents a whole syllable, such as a consonant plus a vowel together. That can be efficient for some languages, but it may require many symbols. In a logographic system, signs represent words, morphemes, or units of meaning. These systems can preserve meaning across different pronunciations, but they usually require a much larger inventory of signs. Alphabets take another path. They trade large symbol sets for a smaller toolkit. By representing smaller sound units, they make it possible to write huge vocabularies with a limited number of letters. The story begins in ancient Egypt, inside one of the world's most famous writing traditions, hieroglyphs. Egyptian hieroglyphic writing used signs in several ways. Some signs represented objects or ideas, while others represented sounds. Among them were signs that scholars call uniliteral signs, meaning signs linked to a single consonantal sound. These were not a complete alphabet in the modern sense. They existed within a larger and more complex writing system. But they introduced a crucial idea: a written mark could function as a sound clue. Once writing could point directly to pronunciation, a door opened toward alphabetic thinking. These early sound signs were especially useful when scribes needed to write foreign names or words. A name from another language might not fit neatly into the usual Egyptian system of symbols and meanings. But if scribes could approximate the sounds, they could write the name anyway. That practical need helped push writing toward phonemic representation. The change was not a sudden invention by one genius. It was more like a series of adaptations. People noticed that sound-based signs could solve real problems, especially when languages met through trade, migration, diplomacy, and conquest. The alphabet grew from these moments of contact. A major step in that transformation was the Proto-Sinaitic script. It drew from Egyptian hieroglyphic forms but used them in a more consistently sound-based way. The signs became less tied to the full Egyptian scribal system and more useful as a compact method for representing speech. This mattered because complex writing systems often required specialized training. A simpler sound-based script could travel more easily and be adapted by people outside the original scribal culture. Proto-Sinaitic was not the same as the alphabets we use today, but it carried the essential logic: use a limited set of marks to represent the sound structure of words. From this background emerged the Phoenician alphabet, one of the great turning points in writing history. The Phoenicians were active across Mediterranean trade networks, and their script moved with them. A writing system that is compact, practical, and easy to adapt is exactly the kind of technology that spreads through commerce. The Phoenician system became an ancestor of many later scripts, including Hebrew, Arabic, Greek, Latin, Cyrillic, and possibly Brahmic traditions. Its importance is not only that it existed, but that it traveled. It became a parent system, copied and reshaped by different cultures for different languages. However, the Phoenician script also shows why the word alphabet can be tricky. It mainly represented consonants, not vowels. In modern classification, this kind of system is often called an alsheri. Alsheris can work extremely well, especially in languages where consonantal roots carry much of the core meaning and readers can infer vowels from context. Hebrew and Arabic are connected to this broader tradition, though both developed ways to indicate vowels when necessary. The important point is that a sound-based script does not always represent every kind of sound equally. Some systems prioritize consonants and leave more work to the reader. Another related category is the abugida. In an abugida, consonant letters are central, but vowel information is usually shown through marks or modifications attached to those consonants. This differs from an alsheri, where vowels may be mostly absent or optional, and from a true alphabet in the narrow sense, where vowels and consonants both have independent letters. The scholar Peter T. Daniels emphasized these distinctions to make writing systems easier to compare. These categories reveal something deeper. Scripts are not just decorative shapes. Each one is a design decision about how to break speech apart and how much information a reader needs on the page. Under that stricter definition, the Greek alphabet represents a major breakthrough. The Greeks adapted the Phoenician system but changed some signs so they could represent vowel sounds. This gave Greek independent letters for both consonants and vowels. That may sound like a small adjustment, but it changed how explicit writing could be. When vowels are written directly, readers do not need to infer as much from context. Pronunciation becomes clearer, and the system can fit languages where vowels strongly affect meaning and grammar. The Greek alphabet was therefore both borrowed and original, inherited from Phoenician, but redesigned for Greek speech. The Greek adaptation helped shape later alphabets, including the Latin alphabet used for English and many other languages today. Over centuries, scripts were carried by trade, empire, religion, scholarship, printing, education, and eventually digital technology. The Latin alphabet spread especially widely, but it often had to be modified. Accents, diacritics, added letters, and spelling conventions helped it represent sounds that classical Latin did not have. This shows the alphabet's flexibility. A script can move into new languages, but it rarely arrives perfectly suited. Each language reshapes the borrowed tool, stretching the alphabet to match its own sound system. Alphabets also do more than record speech. Most have a standard order, and that order becomes a tool for organizing knowledge. Alphabetical order lets people arrange dictionaries, archives, indexes, libraries, contact lists, databases, and school exercises in a predictable sequence. Once a community agrees on the order of letters, information becomes easier to store and retrieve. Letters can also become labels or numbers. Section A, Option B, Plan C. This administrative power is easy to overlook because it feels mundane. But the alphabet did not only change writing. It changed how societies sort, search, teach, and manage information. Some alphabets also preserve traces of older naming traditions through acrophony. In acrophony, a letter's name is connected to the sound it represents, often because the name begins with that sound. Greek, Arabic, Hebrew, and Syriac show this kind of pattern. The Latin alphabet, by contrast, generally lacks the same kind of acrophonic structure in its letter names. This detail reminds us that alphabets are historical artifacts, not neutral lists of symbols. Their shapes, names, orders, and uses carry evidence of older languages and teaching methods. Every alphabet is a living fossil of the cultures that adapted it. The alphabet's greatest achievement is that it turns the invisible flow of speech into a visible system that can survive outside the speaker's body. It began with sound clues in Egyptian hieroglyphs, developed through early phonemic scripts, spread through Phoenician trade, and changed again when Greek added independent vowel letters. From there, alphabetic scripts became foundations for religion, law, literature, science, administration, and everyday communication. Alphabets are not the only way to write, and they are not perfect. But their core idea remains astonishing. With a few marks, humans learned to store the sounds of language and pass them across centuries. If you found this helpful, Please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.